it's kind of amazing how many Dana White Contender Series fighters we have on this card. It's pretty cool that, we're seeing these farm systems and these different organizations really build up to create, what seems to be a very prosperous long-term future for MMA. I'm a big fan of the prelims. I'm a big fan of those up-and-coming stories in all of sports, and having this happen in MMA is kind of like my favorite part over the last little bit here. So without further ado, let's just get right into Phil Rowe and Orion Cosce. Now, the cool thing about Orion Cosce is we saw him on the Dana White Contender Series with his brother Lewis, who actually ended up fighting Sasha Platnikov and losing. And, we were supposed to actually see both Cosce's fight on that card, but Orion got injured, pulled out for a neck injury, and this is actually his first UFC fight overall since, August when we saw him on the Dana White Contender Series. And the cool thing about this fight is you have Phil Rowe, who actually has that UFC experience. And you want to talk about that Gabe Green fight a little bit, right? I thought that Phil did a good job in the beginning parts of the fight. The pace is just something that will trouble him, I think. Gabe Green started really understanding the distance, started putting on his own pressure, and Phil seems to really be stuck in his own pace. And I think with the leg kick damage that happened and just the overall, I guess lopsided aspects of the striking game in that fight, he looked fairly defeated towards the end of that second round, and Gabe Green just really took over in that fight. I thought that it was a good showing of resilience for Phil Rowe, being at his debut, especially after, such an incredible performance on the Dana White Contender Series himself. Third round finish. I mean, he absolutely showed off when it came to the combos, picked his shots really well. That's what I enjoyed about his finish. And then you talk about the way Cosce fought on the Dana White Contender Series, and it was more of like the feel him out, put the pressure, see where you can take the fight. Both guys are pretty tired, but Cosce just didn't give up and really, really worked that wrestling and ground and pound in the third round to come away with a pretty solid victory. And that's where I kind of see this fight really clashing. I think that Phil Rowe showed that he has pretty good MMA grappling for the most part to at least keep top position against Gabe Green sometimes. But in this fight, that's going to be very important. You talk about the keys to victory. Now, even with a 9-inch reach advantage for Rowe, there's aspects of that Gabe Green fight that make you kind of curious on how good his striking game is just at the UFC level. Now, outside of that, using the 1-2s and the long kicks to be able to set up takedowns, to work top position, those are the areas I can really see him doing better. Managing the cardio, being very fresh in the third round against a guy like Cosce, who's going to be looking to put the pressure. I think that if I'm Cosce, it's pretty simple whether you think his striking is going to be good or not. Dealing with 9 inches of reach disadvantage can always be a problem, and getting that wrestling going, making Phil really work and tire him out the way Gabe did. I think that you look at the areas that Gabe Green did damage in that fight, those are the parts that makes it stand out a little bit, because Phil didn't look beat up in that fight, but his knee was busted, he was tired. And so those are the areas where I think a guy like Cosce, in the style that he has, working the takedowns and the ground and pounds, makes it a very tough fight for Rowe. And on the flip side, I think that if he has the cardio to at least deal with some of that pressure in the beginning, it might open up some opportunities to be more of a point striker for the next few rounds with what could be a much more tired Cosce than him. Because I just, as much as I want to give Phil Rowe some credit to be on top and work some ground and pound and some good transitions to kind of utilize his BJJ, we're still also dealing with Team Alpha Male's Cosce, whose wrestling seems to be pretty good, and his top pressure is insane. So if he does find a way to sweep or reverse and get top position on Rowe, I think that's going to spell some really tough issues for him, especially getting up from the bottom on a guy who's just so heavy and I think can really wear his weight pretty well when he's on top. And so you just think about what Cosce's overcome. He was a plus 250 dog on that Dana White Contender Series card. And I think that these are all the areas where you just want to see him prosper and grow. And I think on this card, you're going to see him as a favorite. I think that Phil Rowe's holes kind of showcase a bit rough for a wrestling opponent. You think about how, Cosce's going to be able to exploit at least early. If Phil's not able to defend these takedowns, it's going to be a little bit tougher for him to even initiate any type of offense that he'd want to do. You talk about Cosce's takedown defense of 70%, but his accuracy of 100% on that first Dana White Contender Series fight. I think that Phil Rowe's 25% takedown defense is going to be tested here. And so I am going to give Cosce the favorite. I want to put him at approximately a minus 175, minus 180, because I do think that the cardio and I do think that I'm not going to say the cardio. I do think that the wrestling and the ground and pound and just that top level pressure and the ability to push forward is just an area I give him a lot of credit. And I think he's going to be able to get around that. I'm guessing that Vegas thinks he's going to be able to work around that 9-inch reach disadvantage. And so without further ado, let's take a look at these lines. I mean, come on now. I said that about the -170, -180, opened as a -185. You're seeing right now at that -160, -170 range, and guys like Betway got a bit -225, so stay away from that. I mean, you can still get around that -160 range, so if you're a Cosce fan, that's probably the line you're looking for. And if you're a Phil Rowe guy, I mean, opened at +160, Betway is where you want to go to maintain that +162 line, but he's definitely getting closer in most areas to that +130 line. Like I said, man, it's going to be that length battle for him, and if you can avoid those power areas where Cosce's going to try to get the ground and pound going with top position, I think that Phil Rowe can make this a fight and really shed that underdog maybe halfway through the fight. So stay tuned for that one. I think it's going to be exciting. Maybe not as much as the previous fight, but I think these guys are going to put on a show.